it is 7:01. We're going to get started. For anyone that may be streaming online, anyone that may be coming in, I want to make sure that we're being timely. We're going to start with a song. We'll be doing some singing today. If you want to sing, you can. If you just want to listen, that's also fine. שאין לך אדם שאין לו שעה ואין לך דבר שאין לו מקום ואני מאמין, I really do believe that everybody's got something to show. This song is written by Jacob Spike Krause, who we spoke about a few minutes ago. When I go she'ein lecha, you're gonna go Adam. Let's practice that. She'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a. And then similarly with those words ve'ein lecha, you're gonna go davar ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. Let's take that from she'ein lecha. She'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. V'ani ma'amin, I really do believe that everybody's got something to show. Repeat after me. Fish swim, birds fly, days do, night sky, rain soaks, sun dries, I call, this part's just me, you reply, I just need to know just what makes you glow. Get ready with Adam. She'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. Ani ma'amin, I really do believe that everybody's got something to show. Repeat after me. Some write, some sing, some take, all green, some laugh, some cry, some call, all reply. I just need to know just what makes you glow. Time for it on, she'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. V'ani ma'amin, I really do believe that everybody's got something to show. All creation has its own time to shine. Every person's got something to bring. So if you're feeling like the world's passed you by, just give them a reason to sing. She'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. V'ani ma'amin, I really do believe that everybody's got something. She'ein lecha Adam, she'ein lo sha'a ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. V'ani ma'amin, I really do believe that everybody's got something to show. This song, written by Jacob Spike Krause, very popular in our camps at the moment, especially in something called song session. Think just like big Jewish dance parties. Bunch of kids singing this, having a great time. Let's look at the translation. For there is no man that has not had his hour, and there is no thing that has not had its place, meaning every person, everything has a role and a purpose in our life. So while they're dancing, while they're jumping up and down, doing any shtick that they want to do with it, this is the lesson that they're getting from it, while having a very meaningful Jewish moment.
Emily,
Yes.
your sunglasses.
Ah.
I don't want you to step on them.
We'll put them there. Thank you.
That's really lovely.
It is a great
Do they
song.
sing everything you're going to present tonight is sung at Jacob's camp?
This one, I actually, when I was there on faculty, he taught this song. So he brought it to Jacob's camp just this summer. But so they now know this song. This was very popular in a lot of the camps that I grew up into by the time I was working there. So for today's session, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background with camp, why this session is really important to me. We're going to talk about what a song leader is, because it's hard to talk about music at camp without talking about who does the music at camps. We're going to talk about the evolution of Jewish music at camps from the 1950s to 2000, from the early 2000s, so thinking like millennial, early Gen Z in terms of generations. That was my generation of camping. And then camps today, late Gen Z, Gen Alpha camping generations. We're going to go through a typical camp day at many of our Jewish camps, and we're going to talk about how is music infused in many of these different aspects of a camp day. A section on testimonials, some direct quotes from friends of mine where you're going to hear from their words, not just mine, about the impact that music at camp had on them. I'm doing music in the Jewish world professionally now. Not all of them are, and you'll be able to hear how it impacted them and even in their current roles. And then we'll have some discussion. So my camp background. So if you don't know me, I'm Emily Graf-Halborn. I'm the music director here. So I grew up in camping. So the first 4 photos you see here are of me as a camper. So those 4, and then these 2 are of me as a staff member at camp. So just curious, who here by a show of hands, anyone go to a Jewish camp growing up? Anyone go to a camp growing up? All right, a few camps. And we'll get to talk a little bit more about our camp experiences in the discussion at the end. So as a young kid, I didn't really feel a huge connection with Judaism, 6, 7. My cantor, who's a wonderful man, was very operatic, like opera arias, like that was his thing. And at age 6, I was not listening on my boombox to opera arias. So it didn't really, to me, that's what Jewish music was in that moment, and it didn't connect to me. Went to camp in 2006. No idea what to expect besides what my older brother taught me. Anxious and excited, and just went out into the world. And my Israeli counselor, Tal, that very first summer, sang us to sleep with a Shema that sounded like this. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad. That melody, which I later came to be known as Debbie Friedman's melody, was not by any means new in 2006. It came out a long time before 2006, but it was new to me. And in that moment, it was a Shema that I had never heard before in a way that I had never heard before. And it connected me to those words in a way that I'd never felt connected to before. I was about 8, 9 years old at that time. I went on to experience camp services, listening to the prayers that I knew from going to temple with my parents, but in new ways, in new melodies, and surrounded by other people like me as we're arm in arm singing. I went on to experience song sessions, giant Jewish dance parties where we're jumping around, we're high-fiving each other while singing really important Jewish messaging. And Havdalah at the end of the week, when the sun is setting, all sitting in a big circle on the patio with a song leader in the middle, singing Debbie Friedman's Havdalah blessings. And all of a sudden, at the end of that summer, at the age of 9, Judaism made a lot more sense to me. The music made a huge difference because it wasn't just this abstract concept, oh, I know I'm Jewish because my parents tell me I'm Jewish. It was like, oh, I feel this now. I understand this now. I'm a part of something bigger. And music is really what did that for me. Camp still pulls me back in. This is my shirt from being on faculty at Jacobs this summer. I go back to URJ 6 Point Sports Academy, which is one of our 3 specialty camps every year for about a weekend. So even in my fully adult life, camp still pulls me back in. What is a song leader? So when I say the word song leader, what comes to mind to you all?
Mitch Miller.
Mitch Miller? There are people outside of the Jewish world that are considered to be some of the great song leaders. Pete Seeger is often considered to be one of the best song leaders of all time.
My Church of Christ uncle, who performed that at his congregation, was his title.
Song leader? Song leader is a title you'll find in all of these different religions for sure, because we all have this community aspect. Anyone else? What comes to mind? What words come to mind when you hear the word song leader? Maybe as opposed to the word performer. What might the difference, you think, be between a performer and a song leader?
Engaging the people and making one thing happen.
I love it. Engaging the people, making one thing happen altogether. So in the world of Judaism, there's many terms people can use to describe someone who leads music in a Jewish setting. 3 of the most common terms are cantor, cantorial soloist, and song leader. Cantor and cantorial soloist kind of exist in the synagogue setting. So cantor, capital C, is someone who's ordained. They went, they studied there and ordained cantor. Cantorial soloist is someone who acts as a cantor, quote unquote, in a worship setting, but is not ordained. So when I lead on a Friday night service, I lead as a cantorial soloist. And then song leader exists in the camps and youth world. So think camps and also our religious school on a Sunday. That would be me putting on my song leader hat. As I said before, I'm a big fan of showing and not just telling. I'm going to do one song in the style of a Friday night service here at Temple, and then I'm going to put my song leader hat on. And let's check out some of the differences. We continue with the words of Hine Matov, how great it is that we can all be here together. Hine Matov, Umanayim, try the hair in my face, Shepetachim, Gam Yachad. Hine Matov, Umanayim, Shepetachim, Gam Yachad. Repeat after me, how good it is. How sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Matov, Hine Matov. So that's version one. I'm going to put on a different hat now. All right, everyone put your hands in the air. Put your hands together. We're going to practice. When I go, Hine Matov, you're going to clap 2 times like this. Hine Matov. Oh my gosh, y'all are professionals already. Let's try that one more time. Hine Matov. All right. Hine Matov. How great it is that we can all be here together. So excited to be singing with all y'all today. Please join me in the words. Hine Matov. Anayim Shepetachim Gam Yachad. Repeat after me. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Y'all sound great. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Matov, we'll do it together. Hine Matov. 2 very different hats. What were hat 1, hat 2? Which one was song leader hat? Definitely the second one. What were some of the differences you noticed between a cantorial soloist hat that you might find on a Friday night service or a song leader hat that you'll find in our camping system? What were some of the differences that you noticed?
Well, it was instructional, like the song leader, I'm going to do this, and then you follow me with that.
There were instructions, right? The goal is to get people doing it with you, to get them engaged quickly. Any other differences that we noticed?
Dignity, formality, and warmth.
So, right, a little bit more formality versus a little bit more like, we're just going to have a conversation. We're just here. We're having fun. I'm right there with you. I like to think of the song leader as like, you are joining me. I'm joining you. We're in this thing together. Any other differences or similarities? Are there any similarities that we noticed between both hats?
The words.
The words, right? At the end of the day, we're still singing to a group of people. How great it is that we can be here together. The message remains the same, even if the delivery is a little bit different. So that was what we just did, the Hine Matov. When I'm putting on my song leader hat, my main goals are specifically participation, education, and community. Is the group participating? If not, why? And what can I do in the moment to fix that? That is a crucial part of song leading. Are they learning something, whether it's a new topic or a prayer? And is this moment creating a sense of community? When I step into our religious school, when I go in front of a camp, I think about those 3 things and make sure that by the time they leave, whatever moment we are creating together, that there was participation, that they learned something, and that in that moment together, we made a community. So URJ Camp, a lot of what we're talking about is going to be centered around the URJ camping system. So I want to give you some background just so you kind of understand the terminology where we're coming from. The very first camp opened in 1952. So at the time, it was actually called UAHC. I believe, Union of American Hebrew Congregations. Today we know it as the URJ, Union for Reform Judaism. It is the overarching body organization for Reform Judaism in the United States. The very first camp that was opened in this institution was in 1952, Olin St. Ruby Union Institute, known colloquially today as Osrui. So when I say Osrui, that's what I'm referring to. The newest camp, URJ 6 Points Creative Arts, there are 3 what we call specialty camps that opened in 2018. So all of the camps in our quote-unquote camping system opened between 1952 and 2018. So that's the time period of new camps that we're really working with. Currently, there are 14 camps. So a regional camp is like Jacobs. So our kids go to Jacobs. Deep South goes to Jacobs. I grew up at URJ Camp Coleman because I am from Florida. In Georgia, Florida, they go to Coleman. If I wanted to go to Newman in Northern California, there was no reason why I couldn't. I can 100% go to Newman in Northern California. I'll just be there with a lot of kids from California. So those are regional camps. Then we have 3 specialty camps. So 6 Points Sports Academy is a specialty camp. They come from all over to do Judaism and sports and camp together. URJ 6 Points SciTech, same thing but with science. And then Creative Arts Academy is the newest. Same thing, but with dance, music, visual arts, all of the arts. All right, now let's dive into a little bit of history. We're going to start with the 1950s to 2000. Then we're going to dive into my generation of millennial, early Gen Z. And then we're going to finish it off with what is music at camp looking like today. So before we go here, and I kind of did a little hint. To understand where camp music is now, we have to understand where it came from and how it developed. So if you had to guess, and I jumped the gun a little bit, if you had to guess what genre of music was most prevalent in camps between the years of 1950, 1960, 1970, there's a lot of options, but if you had to guess a genre, what genre would you guess?
Folk.
I would probably guess folk. Wonder where you may have gotten that idea. My bad. So the people that are working at the camps in 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, going to camps, they're kids, they're young adults, and folk music was a huge part of their lives. As a result, the music sung at camps and written for camps was largely in this folk style. Guitar in worship settings, like in a congregation, took a little bit longer to integrate in congregations. But guitar was instrumental, pun fully intended. Guitar was instrumental for the camp music and the camp culture in bringing that difference between the music they would hear in their congregations and the music they hear as youths together in a camp setting. What are some of the goals of folk music as compared to maybe other genres? What do you think some goals of folk music might be?
Communal participation.
Communal participation?
It values the lyrics. It values the lyrics a lot.
Right.
The lyrics,
Storytelling.
the messaging, storytelling, tikkun olam, often a huge part of that storytelling. Anyone else? Goals of folk music? I mean, that's a huge part of it. Communal singing, communal gathering. Are we singing together? Are we coming together? What messages are in the words that we're saying? Not only is that really important in folk music, that's really important in the Jewish music that we do at camps and that we sing at camps, which is why folk music in and of itself is the perfect avenue for getting this music out to our campers. And it really was a perfect fit. The genre of progressive Jewish music largely started in this folk style. You can very much, the scope of progressive Jewish music and the scope of camp music largely go hand in hand. And that is because progressive Jewish music and camp music really started with people like Debbie Friedman, Jeff Klepper, Michael Isaacson. So not only were they the first people to be really significant in the camp space, they were also some of the first people to invent this kind of new genre of progressive Jewish music. And in the folk world, you can see some significant secular artists that were done at the time: Peter, Paul and Mary, Pete Seeger, Joan Baez. It's important I say not exhaustive, because you can talk to someone that went to camp in this era and they can probably give you 10 more names of people that they sing. What'd you say?
Ronnie Gilbert, the Weavers.
The Weavers, exactly. There are so many other options. So none of these lists are exhaustive. These are just some examples.
Bob Dylan Jewish? What is he
Yeah.
Jewish?
When he
I was gonna say, I'm for sure.
is selective, when he wants to be Jewish and when he doesn't.
Yeah, he's gonna be back and forth.
Yeah, I'll pass these around in a moment. So this is also the time that songbooks were used. Social media was not a thing in this era. You couldn't go and see, like I could pop on right now on Instagram and say, oh, that's what Jacob's Camp is singing this summer. I want to bring this to Temple, or oh, that's what Coleman's doing. I also heard this at this camp. We can do that now. That wasn't really something that you can do in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. So what they did is they had conferences. So Debbie Friedman started the Havana Shira Conference, which still happens today. I go to it. It is a conference for song leaders. So all the song leaders would get together at the Havana Shira Conference. They would share melodies, they would share techniques, talk about what being a song leader means, how to do it, and what songs we want to teach to all the camps. And then they had songbooks. So Nifty is kind of the youth group for URJ. And so they came out with the Nifty 50 songbook. And they would all learn the music in the Nifty 50 songbook. And then they would all bring it to their camps. So even if they weren't connected through social media like we are today, they would come together, they would have the same songbooks. This was their social media, this was their Spotify and their ultimateguitar.com. They would have these, they would come together, and all of the camps, despite geographically separated, would do a lot of the same music. So I'll just pass these around for anyone that wants to see. These are examples of, in that like 1950s to 2000 range of songbooks. These are examples of the songbooks that were very important when I was growing up. And this is an example of some of the songbooks that are going around today. So I'm just going to leave them here. Or if you want to kind of check those out, take one, pass it around, just some examples of what songbooks look like. The very important thing to recognize between the 1950s to 2000 is that everything that we have today stems from there. The pipeline work, the folk music, so many of the early artists, the important groundwork for what a song leader is and how it makes sense within our world of Jewish camping, all stemmed from this era.
What role did the foundation of Israel play?
I'm so glad you asked, because that actually plays directly into our next song. That was a wonderfully timed question. So Inter by Debbie Friedman takes the words, if you will it, this is not a legend, to be a free people in our land, in the land of Zion and Jerusalem. I asked my cantor, who went to camp in the late 70s, early 80s, I think she said, what her favorite songs were, and this was on the list. So there are, especially around the early years, a lot of songs about Israel and pride, about being Jewish, pride of the state of Israel. So Debbie Friedman wrote the melody for those words. Early 2000s. Now we're getting into my era. So again, like we said, to understand where camp music is now, we have to understand where it came from. The 1950s, 2000 is where it came from. We're getting closer to where it is now. It's really important, these words here, in addition. Just like you could find a 12-year-old today singing Don't Stop Believing by Journey, you could find a 12-year-old today singing Tertsu if their camp is doing it. All of these things, all of these artists, Dan Nichols, Alan Goodis, is in addition to Debbie Friedman and Jeff Klepper, not as a replacement of Debbie Friedman and Jeff Klepper. Really kind of in the 80s and 90s, but it really hit the ground running in the early 2000s, is when we start to see a lot more pop and rock influence start to emerge more heavily alongside the folk style. They're trying to adapt to the group of campers that they have now. And especially if you listen to any of like the Dan Nichols, Alan Goodis recordings, you can be like, all right, that's pretty rockin'. So that starts to come into play. We have artists like Dan Nichols. So if you know the from services, that's his. Alan Goodis. Then we have Rick Rex. Josh Nelson, and now we're going to take a moment because this is I always find this one funny because we do this one often for coming out of silent prayer. So I just want you to hear the original recording. beautiful coming out of silent prayer. There's a guitar solo in here. So the original recording is very rock and roll. And then Noam Katz also was very instrumental along this time. And many of them were Havana Shira faculty. The conference that Debbie Friedman created that's still going on today, many of the names I just listed, I learned from all those people at some point in my life at some various conference. I think the most important thing to mention about the early 2000s, to really understand how camp music and our movement got as strong as it did, is this song leading pipeline for a clear path from camper to youth group song leader to a camp song leader. And I directly benefited from this. So what happened was they would take a camp song leader, and that camp song leader would identify a younger kid, middle school-ish, who had an interest in music. And they would say, why don't you come do a song? So the first time I ever performed a song that I wrote was on a unit service when I was going into 8th grade. That was one of the first times I ever performed in kind of the guitar singing style. They send you the chords to songs that we do at camp for you to practice during the year. Then you enter high school. So Dan Nichols and Alan Goodis, I'm using them specifically because they were big mentors of mine. They would come to my camps. They would say, okay, we've met you at camp. You're now in youth group. We're going to come to your youth group as artists in residence for your NIFTY region, and we want you to become a NIFTY song leader, and we're going to work with you. And we have these conferences that we lead. They're called Nashir, Schulhouse Rock, where we're going to train you more throughout the year on how to be a song leader. And then you're going to go to camp. And your song leaders are going to continue training you on how to be a song leader and give you opportunities. So you turn 18 and you're thinking, I've already done this for years. Of course I'm going to be a song leader. And then you're a song leader. And guess who's an artist in residence? Dan Nichols and Alan Goodis and those people. They know your strengths. They know your weaknesses. They know how to help you keep getting better. And then it is your turn to look at a kid who's in middle school and say, you're the next generation. So why am I talking about this song leading pipeline? Why do you think that's important to understand that when we're talking about music at camp? Why could that be important?
Leading youth, it's more powerful.
Youth leading youth. You're looking at people and they're 18, 19, 20. They look like you, just a few years older, but you can see yourself in them. The song leading pipeline is important because when the pipeline is strong, when there's a lot of intentional work being done, it creates this well-oiled machine that makes camp music stronger, that makes Jewish music more intentional, it makes it more meaningful, and the impact that it has long-term is remembered for years to come because of those movements. If you do not have a good song leader in your camp without training, there's a lot of musical moments that might be missed. This is done with intention to make sure that every camper that comes in, whether they want to be a song leader, whether they just want to play basketball, hang out with their friends, go to bed and wake up the next day, they have meaningful Jewish moments that are quality woven throughout their day. Early 2000s was very, very strong for that pipeline work. Let's sing a song from the early 2000s. This song is actually still very popular today, but I remember doing this with a kid. When I do this for a group of people, I always like to say the words are very difficult. They're na 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 na. Got the words? Yeah. Perfect. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. I added to an animation. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Shenatan manu gizanu, v'tekein et haolam. Na 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 na. And it keeps going and going. And now let's take a moment to look at the words in Hebrew that they just sang at a giant dance party. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, for giving us the opportunity to mend the world. So in the midst of all the, we call it shtickifying, in the midst of all the shtickifying that they do, where you'll have like a na, 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 and ain't no party like a Jacob's Camp party, and little things like that. In the midst of all that, they're saying some really incredible words. We're giving them meaningful Jewish education just by also giving them a dance party. Where else are you going to get that? Now, let's go to today. One of the most important things of today is that there's an increase in genre influences. But I have another question. What is something very significant that happened between the 2010s and today? May have had a large effect on society as a whole. Very significant.
Social media?
So social media for sure. Think like big, full world event. COVID. So just like everything else, COVID had a very large effect on our camping movement. So with the first summer 2020, camps were canceled. And the next summer they were kind of in bubbles where they were by cabin, but they weren't really integrated together, and they were in masks, and things weren't in the usual environment. Song leaders, professional song leaders couldn't, like the Jacobs by Cross of the world and Dan Nichols and Alan Goodis's, couldn't travel to camps like they usually would to do that important work. So what ended up happening is there were 2 years taken off of very important pipeline work, and the pipeline years were disrupted. Culture also requires consistency. So without that consistency, the music cultures at camp shifted. And the field of song leading is still seeing some of those effects. So for instance, there's a song leader shortage right now because of 2 years of really not being able to do that pipelining work. There were 2 years of not being able to really identify those kids, and that's the effect that we're still seeing today in the camping movements. And also, just like I said, cultures require consistency. You can't go back to the same music culture that existed pre-COVID because the world is so different. And so what camps are having to do now is camps are having to shift what defines music to them in 2025, not in 2018, what music means to their community in 2025. And one of the most, I think, incredible things to come from that are the wide variety of genres that we're seeing in Jewish music these days. So we did a Jacobs by Cross song earlier. We're going to do another one of his in a second. Very popular with our kids now because they can see their musical interests in his music. Alana Arian, who we know and love here at Temple Israel, pop, folk, Middle Eastern influence. Charlie Kramer, he does pop style with his Jewish music, but infuses activism. He's blind, legally blind. Nefesh Mountain is Jewish bluegrass. So if you like bluegrass and you like Judaism, check out Nefesh Mountain. They're awesome. Nava Tehillah is Israeli music, and Noah Aronson, pop, folk, and the list can go on and on. But I think one of the most incredible things to come out of the pandemic and the creative spur that came out with it is that all of these artists of all these different genres are touring all of these camps, and we're really expanding what Jewish music can look like.
You know, one thing that I found this week, Kirtan Ravi. So he sings as if he were singing mantras like Krishna Das. That is Jewish songs.
I love that. And it's like you're saying, people are realizing I can make Jewish songs in whatever genre I want. I can rap a Jewish concept. Like, no one's stopping me.
Yeah,
And
that's
so-
missing from there. Rap, I would think that it would be up there.
People are working on that. It's in the works.
Have you heard Mati Siafi?
Yeah, so Mati Sahu is a great example of that.
But it's not camp, though. I mean, he's,
One of his songs is One Day has been, so
Beautiful.
love that song. That was introduced to camp when I was going into 8th grade was the first year that was introduced into camp, and that is still beloved today in our camping culture. Sometimes I lay under the moon and I thank God I'm breathing, and then I pray, don't take me soon, I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, I don't ever let it get me down. When negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more, there'll be no more wars, and our people will say one day, one day, one day. It's a camp. It's a camp.
It's like the 60s all over again.
It's like, that's what I'm saying, folk music, progressive Jewish music, like they work so well together. And kids have their arms, or campers have their arms around each other when they're singing this, and it's a camp moment, but it's also such a Jewish moment. Just think about the words they're saying in these moments. That's music at camp. That's the importance of music at camp. We're gonna sing another Spike song.
If I went on Spotify and typed in or put in Nefesh Mountain or bluegrass, would I keep hearing some kind of Jewish bluegrass stuff?
Yeah, I can play a little snippet of Nefesh Mountain right now. I saw them perform live in Nashville in a little dive bar. It was fun.
We put Pete Seeger in on a 6-hour drive, and it wouldn't stop. It kept going over and over the place.
This is their song.
Oh, no. Well, 6 hours of it? I mean, really?
6 hours of Pete Seeger is a lot of Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
This is a Nefesh Mountain. This is their song, Tree of Life. Tree of Life, how we refer to the Torah. Let's get on. Through this pain we share. Where's one of their, this is their Hine Matov called Brothers and Sisters. So Jewish bluegrass is a thing, and that's one of the most amazing things. I had someone recently ask me, where do you think the future, like what genre do you think the future of Jewish music is in? They're like, we had the folk moment, then we had more pop rock, whereas the future, and I'm like, the future is that the options are endless. The future is that there's all these different genres going on right now, and they're in our camps, and they're in our temples, and it just makes it so special. Oh, that's right. Now we're gonna sing a Spike Cross song to represent the music of today. Not only is this popular at camps, this is very popular in our religious school. This is probably one of the favorite songs of our religious school kids. Once again, some very hard lyrics at the beginning. Oh, 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 very wide range. Oh, 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 oh. Rainy, Megabel alive. It's not rainy, Megabel alive. It's not this is a call and response. One more time. If you ever want to see a group of Jewish kids moshing, they will mosh to this song. Now let's take a second and look at the words that they're singing. When they're in their mosh pits in camp, they're singing, with this I take upon myself the commandment of my Creator, love your neighbor as yourself. Doesn't get better than that. And it's
How does it work in the camp? Do you stop to tell them what they're singing?
So in terms of like when you
In
teach
terms
them,
of, because they're singing in Hebrew, and they might not know.
so often we start with, so for instance, when I taught a version of a Hine Matov I wrote to 6 points this year, I started with, usually they do it in some kind of musical way. So if I was Spike, if I was introducing the song, here at camp we have so many friends, and it's really important to know that all of our friends, no matter what we look like, no matter who we love, no matter where we are, what cities we live in, we are going to love everybody, every single person as ourselves. Treat everyone with the kavod and respect that we all deserve. And we're going to sing these words together. Repeat after me. Oh, oh. So a lot of times they'll introduce it like that, very high energy in language that the kids can understand. So they're probably not going to leave saying, I learned this song that means with this, I take upon myself the commandment of my, but the idea is usually explained before the song. Yeah, if anyone has any questions at any time, please speak up. All right, now let's dive into the bread and butter. Let's talk about how music is infused every day at camps. Separating it into 3 sections, then we're going to take a look at a day top to bottom. So we have our worship moments, Ma'ariv, so evening services, Shacharit, morning services, Havdalah, the end of Shabbat, and our Shabbat walk and stroll. We're going to have some clips that I compiled for you to really see what this looks like. But for reference, Shabbat walk strolls, usually song leaders meet campers near their cabins, and then they all walk them musically with music going on to a central place where they then continue the music together. Then there's the programmatic influences of music at camp, things like song sessions, the big Jewish dance parties, music classes, so this could be teaching guitar, or it could be teaching Jewish music to young kids, or campfires, of course, a camp classic, or it could be social, things like bedtime rituals. So I would sing my campers to sleep with the Hashkivenu every single night. I would have camp counselors that weren't super musical, but they would play a recording of a Jewish prayer on their phones, or like what I told you earlier, the Debbie Friedman Shema that my counselor taught in 2006, impressed I still remember her name, saying to me, singing while walking is a big one, and wake up playlists, very important. Typical camp day, wake up playlist. Why is this important? You Can Call Me Al by Paul Simon and the entire Fearless album by Taylor Swift feels incredibly Jewish to me. Why? Because I started every single day, one of my years at camp, listening to either You Can Call Me Al by Paul Simon, that was my Nachshanim summer, so that was going into 8th grade, or the entire Fearless album by Taylor Swift, which was my summer going into 9th grade. Not only did I hear this every single day before starting a wonderful day of Judaism, but we would take these songs, we would sing them on the way to the dining hall, we would sing them on the way to services. Those songs became so infused with camp for us that it felt like camp for us, and because it felt like camp for us as Jews in a Jewish community, Paul Simon feels Jewish. Now,
Logical.
the one thing leads to the other. So then we have breakfast. That's just breakfast, gotta love it. Then we have programming. So there's a few examples of what programming can look like. So some of it's basketball, hiking, ropes course. It can be Jewish, you're with Jewish people, so in that world it feels Jewish. Maybe you're singing one of your wake-up playlist songs. Maybe you're singing You Can Call Me Al on the ropes course, which is great. But there's also specifically music-infused programming. So one example is, like I know Jacobs has I mentioned Jacobs a lot because that's this regional camp for this temple. I know they have a ukulele class that kids can take, so you can go to camp and you can learn ukulele. You learn the prayers on ukulele. At the camp I worked at, Coleman, we had a guitar one. So a kid that I actually taught guitar to, brand new, never touched a guitar before, now leads services at his Hillel on guitar. So that's actually, he's graduating from college, which feels weird. But he led services at Hillel, and it was cool to be like, you learned guitar for the first time at Jewish camp, and now you're leading Hillel services. Like, these are the impacts that music programming can have. So Coleman Rocks is another example. So sometimes they have, all these animations are really making it take a long time. There we go. So Coleman Rocks is another example. That's what Coleman has, and other camps have an equivalent. So it's like a rock band class. So sometimes we did secular music and sometimes we infused prayer. So these two photos are examples of Coleman Rock. So it's just getting to make a rock band with your friends. Another example of programmatic elements is often camps with young kids. You have just music classes. You teach them the music of camp, or you just sing goofy songs with them, and it reminds you of your friends. But we taught Hashkivenu, and we taught the Barhu, and we taught Fish Swim. It's colloquially known as Fish Swim. It's What Makes You Glow by Jacobs by Krauss, the song that we did. Campers know it as Fish Swim, so it's like ingrained in my brain is Fish Swim. We taught them that song. We talked about the meaning behind it, why it's important. So in those music classes, if we were teaching this song, after we sang the song, we would ask the kids, what's something nice that you can do for someone else today? So infusing really important lessons through music was essential. And the other thing is that often, even if a program itself is not Jewish, so often there's an hour of Jewish learning in a day. It has different titles at different camps. When I was at Jacobs 2 years ago, they had it was about social justice. The whole program is about social justice. And they had a song leader come in at the end and sing that Nana song that we heard, which is about thank you, God, for giving us the ability to mend the world. So they had a program about social justice, and they ended it with a Jewish song about mending the world and tied it all together. So those are some of the ways you see in programming. This I'm very excited to show you. So there's two main times when song sessions come: after a meal, and then in Shabbat, which I'll show you in a second, a post-lunch song session. You finish your lunch, you put your plates down, and it's time to have fun. This is what a song session in action looks like. This is at Fuji. What's me on beats? What are some of the things you noticed in that? Movement, right? They were getting up, they were dancing. It looked like a dance party. What language were they singing? They were singing Hebrew. So it's just like we said, they're having fun. They're jumping up and down. They're singing. Those kids probably went home that summer and they're just walking around like, Ele Hamda Livi. They're having a very Jewish experience and creating important memories with each other, with the community, like we talked about when you're song leading. You want participation, you want community, and education. They learned words of a Hebrew prayer. Education. Was there community there? Oh yeah. Was there participation there? That song session hit all three that you hope to create as a song leader. And then we go on dinner prep because everyone's smelly and they need to shower. Dinner, tefillah, so sometimes shacharit, so sometimes it happens at night, sometimes it happens in the morning. We'll look a little bit about Shabbat and the significance of that, but it's a camp-style service, typically shorter, that happens in the evenings. And then campfires. Not a foreign concept. A lot of us have been to a campfire. One of the fun things about doing it at a camp is that not only are you singing Wonderwall and Wagon Wheel, but you're also singing Jewish music. Was there participation? Was there community? They learned an Israeli song. It hits all three. So not only is it a campfire, it is a meaningful Jewish moment. As I talked about bedtime, singing my kids to sleep. Sometimes that's an individual cabin ritual. This is at 6 Point Sports, where I spend a lot of summers. This is their full camp end of night ritual. Keep this in mind. This is a bunch of athletes. They go to camp to play sports all day. Just keep that in mind as we're watching this. Amen. Have you ever heard a group of athletes sing like that? Crazy. And they still do it to this day. When I go, I'm just always amazed at how meaningful that moment is to them. Let's go over to Shabbat for our final few minutes together. So we talked about the stroll, evening Shabbat services, the big. So lunchtime song sessions are big. Y'all, Friday night song sessions, the biggest dance parties of the entire summer, and it usually ends with a nice little communal moment. Israeli dancing has been infused in more recent years, like towards my latter end of being a camper, and our Shabbat experiences, Shabbat Shacharit, so morning Shabbat services, and Havdalah. I like to show instead of tell. So let's take a look. We have 3 examples. This is from a Coleman promo video talking about Shabbat. That's the Shabbat walk. More Shabbat walk. You see they're walking with music to get to dinner. Blessings. You can see services, everyone in white looking forward. She's now fully an adult. She now lives in Israel. She's now the director. He's retired now. Jamming out. This is services. Look how much fun they're having. Song session. That's Miriam's song. That's a rabbi. So that's at one of our regional camps. We talked about 6 points. Let's take a look at what 6-point Shabbats looks like at one of our specialty camps. This is their Shabbat walk. So same thing, walking with music up to dinner. Singing, walking. Singing at dinner. They call it their holy singing Friday nights. And now let's go to Jacob's. Let's see what Shabbat looks like at our regional camp. And the page is not available. Blocking like a boss. I didn't want you to do that right now, though. It looks the same. I just wanted to show what our regional camp looked like. What did we notice about Shabbat and the music that Shabbat brings at these places? Anything that we noticed?
Very joyful.
Very joyful. People are very happy.
Connected.
There's a lot of connectedness, especially just the chills that go through my body when I'm looking up at just a sea of white and everyone's arms are around each other, and it's unbelievable. While we're in song session, so Cantor Wally Shockett Briskin actually did a master's thesis on song session and Jewish music, and there's one quote that I want to specifically read because he does a really good job at explaining it. He mentions songbooks. We no longer use songbooks, we use slides. He wrote this before slides were a thing. Songbooks are generally ignored as campers rise to their feet, form lines along the aisles, and move to the music, swaying with their arms around each other when the music is slow, jumping and clapping in rhythm when the pace quickens. This is the height of the experience, the moment of climax, when the campers share an ecstatic moment with hundreds of other Jewish adolescents. In any organized activity where a high level of joy is encouraged, the medium does not necessarily matter, because the songs being sung are Jewish. A connection is made to the Judaism in the song, perhaps not consciously, but certainly every time the song is sung from then on. The ecstasy expressed by dancing and clapping and putting arms around each other comes without instruction, right? As a song leader, you're not like, put your arms around each other, it just kind of happens. Yet it is surely fed by campers and staff who have experienced it before and take the actions as appropriate behavior. If a camper were to be asked what all the excitement is about, it is unclear if the team would be able to articulate an answer. A joyful connection with something Jewish is one of the sub-goals of the philosophy at camp. If kids can love singing in Hebrew that is an act of being Jewish, then they will take a love of Judaism with them. If they love singing in Hebrew, if they love singing Jewish concepts and being with Jewish people, they will take that love of Judaism with them. I'll kind of go through these for the sake of time. Or I'll offer questions for the sake of time. I'm going to read a few of these. So from...
Emily, you can also send it to everyone tomorrow. As
Perfect.
an attachment, if you like.
I can also send you if you want any of this information. These are friends of mine that either work in the world of Jewish music or they don't, talking about what camp music means to them. So I'll read a little quote from each. Personally, it has helped me grow my confidence in my abilities to work with others. Jordan Walensky, music and tefillah specialist at the Temple Atlanta. We song-led together at Coleman and in Nifty. Julia Modis is in Nashville. She's a public relations professor and co-leader of Music City. I've loved Jewish music from day one, but the music at camp brought the prayers and their covenant into a whole new light. It shaped my sense of spirituality and what prayer really means. My love of camp music is what inspired me to become a camp song leader myself, which I've since carried through college, where I led at my Hillel. I love calling her rabbi because I've known her since we were teens, and now she's a rabbi, and that's really cool. Even as a rabbi now, I often think of my time at camp singing and song leading and try to bring those same feelings of joy and belonging into prayer services that I lead. Rabbi Lara Tesler from the Temple Atlanta. Ethan Evans, you may know Jackie Evans. This is her son currently at Jacob's camp. Music is the highlight of my summer at camp, whether it's song session on a random day of the week or it's the chapel for Friday night Shabbat services. Music always brings a sense of calmness to me, makes the camp experience so much better. My friend Lindsay, who's an assistant director at Coleman now, camp music has been a constant thread of my Jewish journey, where I first felt the power of singing in community and continues to ground me, bring me joy, and shape the Jewish traditions I want to pass off to my family, which he's currently doing with a very cute little baby girl. So I wanted to end with Circle Game. This is, like I said, everything is in addition. This was sung in that first generation of camp, and it is still sung now. But since we are low on time, I did want to provide time for any questions. Does anyone have any questions that I could answer before we end with singing?
Do you have anything shown to show us about Jacob's camp and the music and all of the special things that Jacob's does? My granddaughter is just had finished her second year at Jacob's.
I do not have as good security on my computer as that computer does. So the video will pull up on my computer. Let's see.
And I've noticed basically is guitar music, and that's basic, and she doesn't play guitar, but she plays clarinet.
Is her name Clara Marlowe?
Yes.
Clara on clarinet. She's in my teen band. I love her. She did when I was on faculty last year, I transcribed the Yehiyu Leratzon for her, and she played it during services with me. So she finds ways to bring clarinet in there, and she's amazing, and I love her.
She played clarinet this all summer, the whole 3 weeks or whatever she was there, and that's what she wants for her bat mitzvah present from us, a new clarinet.
That sounds very much like Clara, and I love that. I got a new guitar for my bat mitzvah, so I understand. So it actually wasn't an issue with the computer. Camp took the post down. But let's see if we can.
From Jacob's, though, where is there?
Let's see. URJ, Jacob's Camp, Shabbat. This is from 2009, but.
That's okay. I just was curious, that's why I came, because I thought it would be something about a local camp too.
I was hoping to show the Jacob's clip, but stroll. Cabins are back there. So they have like little talitot, and they all get the campers under them, and they bless them with a yivarecha. Is their tradition for Shabbat stroll. Lighting the candles. And they do song session in their dining hall. And that's Nadav, who's still there. And so that's a little bit about what it looks like at Jacob's. But they have a very special Shabbat stroll, so they'll go one person is on one side, one person, song leader is on the other side. They scream together, Shabbat Shalom, Jacob's camp. And then they start the stroll. They meet on their lawn. And then counselors get these really long tali tote. All their campers get under them, and they do a yivarechecha as they bless their campers before they have moments to take photos. So I wish I could have shown that video, but that's what it is at Jacob's camp. It's really special. They have a beautiful chapel that was kind of shown there that overlooks the water where they do their Friday night Shabbat. So our campers have, between the 3 specialty options that they can go to and between Jacob's for their regional, I mean, they have really great options for Jewish camping. And the song leader this year, Erin Rothko, is great. So she's getting some great music. I saw her, we chatted, and she was having a great time. I filmed her doing some dancing. So she was a part of like a dance elective, so I can show you that video after that. Does anyone have any other questions?
How do the sessions run? Like how many weeks, or is it an option? When does it start? When does it end? Within a week structure.
Most camps are about 3.5, regional camps are about 3.5 weeks. So there's a first session and a second session. Who goes to which largely depends on school start and end times. The specialty camps are different. It's about a little over a week and a half, and there's 3 sessions. So regional camps and specialty camps are different. That being said, Newman in California, I think the California regional ones also have somewhat of a shorter session just because they realized for that area, that's what worked better for them.
What day when do the campers arrive and when do they leave?
Campers arrive like day of the week or like date?
Day of the week.
Day of the week. They try to avoid Shabbat. So they don't arrive on a Saturday morning or leave on a Saturday morning. So I know when I was at specialty camp, they left on a Sunday. Coleman, they sometimes would have kids leaving on a Friday morning, but they would never do it on a Saturday. So they try to make sure that Shabbat can still be sacred and Shabbat can still be observed for anyone that would want to do it. So often it's any day of the week besides doing it on Shabbat.
Just wondered.
No, I mean, that's a fair
I
question.
wondered if the big Shabbat thing was like the send-off as well.
Gotcha. So it is, a lot of camps will send off on a Sunday. So the specialty camps, most of them send off on Sunday. So you have a big Shabbat. They do something called Firefly, and then you send off. Jacob's, I think, also did a send off on a Sunday. So big Shabbat, do a big slideshow, very meaningful, and then send them off.
I don't know if you would know the answer to this, but just because of your fantastic presentation tonight, I learned a lot, and there's so much value in music that's like creating that bond, that feel good. But Reform Judaism is really big on music. Do you know if the other camps, like the conservative camps, do they also do music like this?
Much more Hebrew. So Camp Ramah. Let's see, Camp Ramah music. Rabbi Josh Warshawski is so if you know like the Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala. So he wrote that one. He's in the conservative movement. He's very involved in Ramah. So it's still very engaged, very musical. Let me try to find let's see what this is. So this is a Jewish camp. Camp Ramah is a specifically conservative camp movement. So you may have noticed one difference is what they're wearing. They're wearing kippot. They're wrapped in tefillin, the men. And so it's a more religious camp, but there's still guitar and they're still singing and they're still praying. I don't know as much about Orthodox camping movements and what that looks like, but in the conservative movement, music is really strong as well. And there's a lot of pipeline work that was done there also. Any other questions? Anything I could answer?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So definitely music creates a connection, like it touches in a way beyond just the lyrics, right? So you mentioned this was about camp, and there's also the cantorial services here, but locally, are there other opportunities to experience Jewish music in small groups, larger groups?
Yeah, for sure. So we have, so here we have our Temple Israel band, and so they do a Shabbat, and so that's different musically. So there's our Friday night services, there's TI band Shabbats, we have a choir that meets, a few choir members here that meets, so that's a great way to really integrate with Jewish music. It's different in a place like Memphis, where there's a Reform synagogue and a conservative synagogue. When you go to places like New York, where you can throw a frisbee and it will land on the roof of a temple, there's a lot of just kind of what I would call grassroots Jewish gatherings that would be great to do more of here.
Yeah, I was in Denver a couple of weeks ago for a conference, and at the end of the conference, there was a Shabbat service, everyone wearing white, and there were conga, drums, someone was playing the saxophone, and lots of dancing, guitars, obviously.
No, there's a lot of really great things we could do. We did a Shabbat service called One Shabbat Morning, which was very musical, which we're hoping to be able to bring back. And so if we bring that back, we'll definitely let you know. And that's a lot of very spiritual, very music-filled moments. But they started doing Jewish camps for adults called Camp Yainais. And it's literally Jewish camp for adults to give them that same sensation of coming together and being musical. They're like, it's not just for kids, adults can do this too. So there's also a big movement of that happening currently. Any other questions? Going once?
Don't forget this Friday,
Oh, yes.
Crosstown Band.
This Friday, so Spirit and Matter is our other in-house band at Temple, and so they're doing this Friday a Shabbat, so that will be absolutely beautiful.
And Crosstown?
Here, actually.
I think they've outgrown the crosstown facility.
The last time we went, we were like, starting.
That's very nice.
Which is a great
Like
problem
the
to
fire
have.
marshal's gonna come in here. It's different. It was great.
I mean, if you're outgrowing a space, you're doing something right.
It was great.
So that's a great problem to
And
have.
then next week, there's also something.
And then the week after that is another musical Shabbat. Eleanor is collaborating with a local pianist. And so there's lots of great stuff happening here at Temple Israel. And we're going to send you the slides to make sure you have it and all those artist names. They can all be found on YouTube, Apple Music. They can be found on Spotify. All of those are recording artists, and it's just really great. It's a way to get in their brain and figure out how they interpret these prayers. And
Craig Taubman is really a good one too.
I love Craig Taubman. So the Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Hamidenu, that's Craig Taubman. The na Adonai, very different vibe. That's also Craig Taubman. He has a Vishamru that's super jazzy and really fun, and it is a Visham. It's like Vishamru B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat. Makes me feel like I need to start scatting. But he's a great artist.
How do you introduce those different melodies to a congregation? I mean, people get set and nervous. Because when I listen sometimes, and I came from a different congregation, so it's different for me, so it takes a while to get used to it. But then I could see you getting excited and inspired by one of your conferences or something, and you want to come back and just kind of jam out with us.
Slowly
Is
the answer I would give. So I try not to do more than one new thing in any given service. And if I do something new in one service, I try to do it again in a service after. And I also try to do it in a way, one technique that I use, which is a song leading technique. So let's say I was introducing, am I awake, am I prepared to a group for the first time? I might start with the very opening of the service just as a nigun. So anytime you hear ya-da-da, oh, na-na-na, that's a nigun, a wordless melody. I might just start the service with ya-da-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da. And then I'll do it a couple times and it's like, join me when you feel like you know the melody. And then try to mimic some of the melody lines with my guitar. And then when the barfu comes back, and they've heard it before. Am I awake? Am I prepared? And it's like, wait, that's the melody that I just did. So that's a very common technique. It's different for a camp than a synagogue. Because if I'm doing a Friday night service, I don't have a song leader hat on, I have a cantorial soloist hat on. The goals are a little bit different. Who you're standing before is a little bit different. And so I'm probably not gonna, I just need to have this thing next to me. I'm probably not gonna stand up there and say, all right, let's learn this new melody for the Baruch. I'm gonna do it one time and then you're gonna do it after me. I'm not gonna do that on a Friday night service, like I might at a camp. So it's more of a slow, trying to find a part. So if I'm doing a prayer that has multiple parts, if there's a quote unquote hook of it, starting with that, getting people comfortable with it, then I'll do the Hebrew part and we'll come back to the hooks and like, oh, I've heard this before, I'm hearing it again. And then we do it again in the service. Then maybe the next time I do it in the service, I emphasize more of the it's more of a slow introduction if I'm doing it in the worship setting.
I remember you did a Bob Marley redemption song once. Very nice.
I learned that at camp. That was very popular. We had a clapping thing. Don't you have to say these songs of freedom? So you have everyone singing, but also doing a whole clapping thing. And learned that one at camp. There was a Waiting in the Velvet Sea by Fish, which once the song leading community found out what the song's actually about, we no longer did it. But there was a Fish one that we did, like sea, waiting in the sea, Nichamocha, going to freedom. There's, if you know Mumford & Sons, it's a morning blessing, so we don't do it as much. But there's Awake my soul by Mumford & Sons, but we do it to Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi Tehorahi. Awake my soul, because Elohai Neshama is all about the souls that we are given as pure, and the chorus of that song is Awake my soul. So there's a lot of very intentional mashups that have been done over time. There's Imagine by John Lennon to O Say Shalom, which is really lovely. V'lo Chad D to the melody of Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, which is lovely. So lots of cool things have come over time. And a lot of things have come from camps. I mean, I truly believe that we have guitar in synagogues. Camps walk so we could run with guitar in synagogues. But yeah, if you have any other questions, I'll be here. I can answer whatever you need. We'll get the presentation to you if you want to reference any of the information or artists. And just thank you guys so much for coming out and for being here today. And if you need anything, you can find me via email or at Temple.
Thank you. Talent is that I absolutely love when you play multiple instruments on Friday night service. I mean,
I love it too.
My jaw drops. It is so.
It's always, I studied saxophone in college, so it's always fun when I feel like I'm putting my degree to use.
It's really beautiful when you do.
Thank you. I was before using unconventional instruments in worship it's more of a thing now. We're starting to see it more and more. When I was in high school, Alan Goodis, actually one of the artists I mentioned, was like, hey, how about you do it? The Yehiyu by Alana Arian, like the Yehiyu. He's like, how about you do that on saxophone? And I was like, what? I was like, saxophone is banned. It's not
saxophone at a synagogue that I know of except here.
And I have Alan Goodis to thank for that. So that is a Shirenu chordster. They're actually coming out with a Shirenu 2, which is a huge deal because that came out, I think, in 2002. So that was like, we called it the Song Leading Bible, that and the songbook over there. So it's just a compilation of a bunch of songs done in camps, and it hasn't been updated since 2002, since I was 4 or 5, somewhere in that era. So the fact that there's coming out the Shirenu chords, which was a huge deal for the Jewish music community. So that means we can identify, so we're working with young song leaders here at Temple. I can hand our young song leaders a Shirenu chords of all the updated music that we're doing at camps and youth movements today. So that's on the way, but that was my Shirenu chordster from when I first started song leading. So all those tabs that you see there were written by me when I was 13. That's also mine, so some of those tabs, that's a little bit more recent. That's the chordster is just chords. That's the complete Jewish songbook, so that's full written out sheet music. Then this is, and anyone can go at any time. I'm just providing extra commentary. The Ruach books, it comes out every 2 years. So these are new and updated Jewish music pieces that are being done or that they predict will be done for camp. So this is specifically, it's for synagogues too, but it's more specifically for camps and youth movements and anyone working with religious schools. So any song that's on here will have been written in the past few years. So 5783 came out in the Jewish year 5783. I'm actually on this one, which is a lot of fun. Is this one? I can't remember which one is this one.
As a writer, like as a.
Which one of my songs is on here? I released my first album of Jewish music in 2021. I believe this is.
Is it for sale in the gift shop?
It is for free online.
That's way better.
It is my Lo Yisagoy is on here, which I've done here a few times. But so there's one that comes out every other year, just the new music that's coming in the movement for camps. That's the one that was a really big songbook. So there's a lot of like the Oseh Shalom, Shalom Birama. Jeff Pepper's Oseh Shalom is in there. And then this one is I think this was 1960 copyright. This is the only one that's not mine. This belongs to the temple. I found it and thought it was cool. Copyright 1960 by Central Conference of American Rabbis, the CCAR. So this one is cool because it's like the very beginnings of things. It looks more like a church songbook.
Yes.
So if you've seen hymnals, this it's pretty spot on to a hymnal.
Does it have shape notes?
Not that
Not
ancient.
Not that ancient.
But this was also during some of the classic reform time periods. So
In the 60s is when Rabbi Wax was in the rabbi here. And he supposedly, I was not a member then, but I thought everybody said it was more like a Christian service with him, not Christian, just, because he was from a very small town in Arkansas somewhere.
and assimilation was a very real thing. They came to the United States, they wanted to assimilate, they saw Christianity, and so a lot of, like you can even see it here, a lot of this music is English. Hear My Prayer is all in English here. One of the fun things about this one is you can actually see notes for guitars. That's how you know it's made for song leaders. So there'll be little notes here like, oh, if you're a guitar, you're gonna play on this capo in this key. So you can tell it was made for folk, people who understood folk music and songwriting. But if you know Elizabeth Albrin, this was her book. So if any of you know it, I'm happy to give them back to her. But I'll leave this here if any of you want to take a look at it again. Thank you so much for being here. We'll send you the PowerPoint and have a great rest of your evenings.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. It was great to spend this time with you. And if you're interested in Jewish music, I can't remember the date offhand, but there's a book club, few sessions that I'm doing adult education wise on, I believe the book was about a lot of classical music being written around the time of the Holocaust and World War II. So I'd love to see you all at the book club and learn more about it.
When is that?
What's the name?
I think it's in the spring.
Okay.
Is this
You
book,
can send that out.
is this book
A novel of some sort?
It's a book.
Which?
Yeah, Zimmerman can't find.
Oh, it's through the adult ed.
Oh, it's-
It would just be 2 sessions.
I belong to Wednesday Jewish.
Oh, you're not there?
Yeah, that's when I.
Sounds good. I'll be here. Yep.
What are you gonna-